All right, so today we're going to be taking a deep dive into some spicy political tea.
Ooh.
Andrew Tate, the king of controversy, is making a bid for the UK's top job.
You're not kidding.
Yeah, with his like totally new BRUV party.
BRU?
Yeah, BRUV. It stands for Britain Restoring Underlying Values.
Okay.
And from what we've been looking at from your sources, he's ready to like completely shake up the UK political scene.
It's certainly a bold move.
Yeah.
Especially given like how unconventional his campaign is.
Yeah, for sure.
But what I think is really interesting is how he's framing this bid.
Okay.
It's not just like a normal political campaign.
Yeah.
He's presenting it as like a total cultural reset for Britain.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you sent us a ton of articles and even some YouTube clips. So let's unpack what exactly is this BRUV party about,
Okay.
and more importantly, what it could mean for the UK.
Right.
So this article, Andrew Tate wants to run for UK Prime Minister.
Yeah.
All about his BRUV party. This lays out his key policies, right?
Yeah.
It covers a lot of ground.
Okay.
Everything from leadership and crime to immigration and culture.
Wow.
And yeah, his approach is,
Okay.
well, let's just say it's anything but ordinary.
All right. So not your typical politician.
No, not at all.
Okay. So let's start with his concept of leadership then.
Okay, so he's advocating for these super strict timelines for like fulfilling campaign promises.
Right.
And if a leader fails to deliver on those promises, immediate resignation.
Wow.
It's almost like he sees leadership as like this
Okay.
temporary mission, a high-stakes contract with the people.
So no more clinging to power.
Exactly.
Wow. That's definitely a different tune than what we're used to.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
From like typical politicians.
Yeah, it really plays into his persona, too.
Okay.
This whole image of him being a decisive, action-oriented leader.
Right.
Who's not afraid to, like, risk it all,
Put it all on the line.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so then there's his stance on crime.
Yeah.
Specifically knife crime.
Right. He's proposing something pretty radical. A 247 live stream.
Wow.
Of convicts in solitary confinement.
Really?
Yeah. He's calling it a deterrent.
Okay.
But I can't help but think, is it effective?
Right.
Is it even ethical?
Is it legal?
Yeah.
Could it even be legal?
It's definitely pushing the boundaries
Right.
of traditional crime deterrence strategies.
Yeah.
I mean, would it actually work?
Right.
I mean, some experts say public shaming can be effective
Okay.
as a deterrent, but others worry about, the ethical implications
Right.
and the potential for like psychological harm to the people.
Yeah. It's a very complex issue.
Very complex.
There's not like a simple answer.
No, not at all.
Definitely raises questions about,
A lot of questions.
yeah, the balance between punishment and rehabilitation.
Absolutely.
Right.
And it really speaks to this larger debate about the role of the justice system in society. Like, what is it for? Is it just about punishment?
Right.
Or should it also aim to like rehabilitate offenders?
And address the like root causes of crime,
Yeah, those underlying issues
Exactly.
that lead to crime in the first place. So his immigration policy is another one that's pretty attention-grabbing.
Yeah.
Zero tolerance is like the name of the game.
Okay.
And he's even suggesting bringing in the Royal Navy to enforce it.
Really?
There's this quote in one of the articles
Okay.
where he says, "We have no obligation to save you from that boat,
Wow.
no matter how rough the sea."
Strong words.
Yeah, it's pretty strong language.
It reflects a growing trend, though,
Yeah.
of these increasingly restrictive immigration policies
Right.
all over the world,
Yeah, it's a really complex issue
It is.
with economic and social and humanitarian dimensions. And Tate's stance is likely to appeal to people
Yeah.
who feel strongly about border control and national sovereignty.
Exactly. It's about drawing a line in the sand,
Yeah.
It
It seems like he's tapping into a sense of like national identity.
Absolutely. And that kind of strong stance
Right.
can be really appealing to
Yeah.
voters who are looking for, clear solutions
Yeah.
in a world that feels increasingly complex and uncertain.
Right. I mean, it's easier to grasp onto something that's like
Yeah.
black and white,
No, exactly.
Okay, so speaking of strong stances, let's talk about his views on LGBTQ plus issues.
Okay.
So he's calling for eliminating what he calls LGBTQ plus propaganda
Okay.
from schools.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it kind of reminds me of Section 28,
Yeah.
that controversial policy from back in the Thatcher era.
It does echo some of those arguments.
Right.
For sure. And like Section 28,
Hmm.
it's likely to spark a lot of debate
Oh, yeah.
about how LGBTQ plus individuals are represented in schools
Uh-huh.
and like what impact that has on LGBTQ plus youth.
Yeah, there are definitely strong opinions on both sides.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a really sensitive topic.
It is.
And it gets heated very quickly.
Yeah.
It touches on like these fundamental questions about how we approach identity and representation and inclusion.
Yeah. And especially when it comes to education and young people.
Especially, yeah, young people are very impressionable.
Right.
Okay, so now one of the most interesting aspects of his platform,
Okay.
at least to me, is his idea for like cultural restoration.
Okay, what's that about?
He wants to cap non-British residents,
Okay.
create a minister for British culture,
Wow.
and essentially he wants to turn back the clock
Okay.
to what he sees as like a more traditional British aesthetic.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating example of how political movements
Mhm.
use nostalgia and this longing for like a golden age.
Yeah,
You know, but the question is, can you really recreate the past?
right. Can we go back?
Yeah, and at what cost?
Yeah, and who gets to decide what counts as traditional British culture,
That's a great question.
right?
And what about all the diversity
Yeah.
and the multicultural elements that are now part of British society?
Exactly.
You know?
It's like he's yearning for a simpler time.
Maybe before globalization and multiculturalism.
Yeah.
Yeah, but can you really put the genie back in the bottle?
Right, that's the question.
Exactly, and it's a question a lot of societies are struggling with.
Yeah.
How do you preserve your heritage
Right.
while also adapting to like this constantly changing world?
It's a tough balance.
It really is.
He's also pledged to completely cut foreign aid
Oh, wow.
and avoid foreign wars,
Okay.
saying that every penny saved will go towards rebuilding Britain.
So like a complete inward focus.
Yeah, it seems like it could have a huge impact,
Yeah,
both on international relations
for sure.
and those countries that rely on UK aid.
Absolutely. I mean, we would definitely see like a shift
Yeah,
in the UK's relationships on the global stage.
right.
And there would be huge concerns about the humanitarian impact,
Mm-hmm.
you know, on all these countries that depend on aid from the UK.
Right, it's a lot of potential fallout.
Yeah, it's a really bold move.
Yeah.
And one that needs a lot of careful consideration.
Yeah, the consequences could be pretty big.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, but now buckle up, because this is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
He's proposing weekly referendums
On what?
on major issues.
Like every week, a new referendum?
Yeah, using blockchain technology.
Whoa.
He calls it Doji E to Daddy.
Doji to daddy.
Yeah, Doji E to Daddy. And honestly,
I've heard it.
I don't even know where to begin with this one.
It's definitely one of the more unconventional proposals
Yeah.
we've seen lately.
Out there.
But it does say something
Okay.
about this broader trend of exploring
Mm-hmm.
how we can use technology and democracy.
So is he talking about like a direct democracy situation?
Yeah.
Where every citizen gets to vote on every single issue?
It seems like that's the idea.
Okay.
I mean, on the one hand, it sounds appealing.
Right. Giving people more control.
Yeah, more direct control over decision making.
Right.
But there are a lot of practical challenges
Okay.
and potential pitfalls to think about.
Like what kind of challenges are we talking about?
Well, first of all, how do you make sure people are informed enough
Right.
to make these decisions?
Yeah. These are complex issues.
Yeah, complex policy matters on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
And there's also the risk of voter fatigue.
Right. I mean, how do you keep people engaged
Exactly.
every single week?
And then there's the potential for manipulation.
Right. If the process isn't set up properly.
Yeah, if it's not carefully designed and implemented.
Yeah. It sounds like a logistical nightmare, honestly.
It could be,
Yeah.
but it does raise some interesting questions about like the future of democracy in a digital age.
Mm-hmm.
Like, can technology actually make governance more participatory
Right.
and more responsive?
More like a direct connection.
Yeah, or are there just limitations
Yeah.
to how much control people can actually have?
Yeah. It's almost like he's trying to hack the system.
In a way.
Yeah. Using technology to bypass traditional political structures.
Exactly, and that kind of thinking
Yeah.
can be exciting and concerning at the same time.
Yeah. It's a double-edged sword for sure.
It really is. Depends how it plays out, you know?
Okay. So we talked about his policies.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about his approach.
Yeah.
But to really understand where he's coming from,
Okay.
I think we need to look at his actual words.
His rhetoric.
Yeah. These quotes from his YouTube speeches
Okay.
are just pure Tate.
Oh, yeah.
Like, for instance, he says, "I'm extremely rich and very successful.
Okay.
It has certainly increased the variety and capability of my enemies."
Classic Tate.
Right.
framing himself as like a victim of his own success.
Right?
It plays into this idea of him being an outsider.
Yeah.
Someone who's targeted because he doesn't play by the rules.
He's not part of the establishment.
Exactly.
And then there's this gem.
Okay.
The United Kingdom has been hijacked by Satanists who have absolutely no concern for the people they are supposed to work for.
Wow.
I mean, where do you even start with that?
It's prime populist rhetoric,
Right.
using inflammatory language to create this image of an elite group
Okay.
that's working against the common person.
So like a classic us versus them narrative.
Exactly. And it's really effective for getting support, you know, especially from people who feel like the system's failed them.
They're disenfranchised or disillusioned with politics as usual.
Exactly.
And then he compares himself to figures like Donald Trump and Elon Musk.
Interesting.
Saying America has managed to save itself with Donald Trump and Elon Musk. And now the United Kingdom needs somebody who is prepared to do the hard things, which must be done.
So he's aligning himself with these figures who are seen as disruptors.
Right.
And he's tapping into that same kind of populism that's been gaining traction all over.
Yeah.
It resonates with people who feel like traditional politicians have failed.
They want someone who's going to shake things up.
Yeah, exactly. Someone who's not afraid to break the mold.
It's like he's positioning himself as the UK's disruptor-in-chief.
Precisely. And that can be really appealing to voters who are just tired of the status quo.
Yeah, and they want to see radical change. But, of course, we can't ignore the elephant in the room.
What's that?
Which is his legal situation.
Right.
That first article mentions he's facing some pretty serious charges.
Yeah.
In both Romania and the UK.
Like what kind of charges?
Including human trafficking and rape.
Wow, that's serious.
Yeah, so how do you think these allegations might affect his political aspirations?
There's a big question.
Can someone facing those kind of charges actually gain traction and become serious contender for prime minister?
I mean, that's something that'll be debated a lot in the coming months.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Public perception is huge in politics.
Right.
And these allegations are definitely going to influence how voters see him.
It's a lot to process.
It is.
And we've covered a lot of ground so far. But I feel like we're just scratching the surface of this whole Andrew Tate for PM thing.
Yeah, as his campaign unfolds, it's going to be fascinating to see how he handles these legal challenges, how his message connects with the British public, and ultimately whether he can turn this unconventional bid for power into a political reality.
So before we move on to the next part of our deep dive into Andrew Tate and his political ambitions, we want to remind you to subscribe and follow our channel.
Yes, please do.
Your support helps us keep bringing you these deep dives into the topics that matter.
We appreciate it.
And if you're feeling extra generous, you can support us on Patreon.
The link's in the description.
Yeah, the link is in the description.
And don't forget to leave a comment below.
Yeah, let us know what you think.
We love hearing your thoughts and perspectives.
Yeah, especially on these complex and controversial issues.
For sure. Yeah, it's definitely a situation that's going to keep us all on the edge of our seats. Now let's go back to those YouTube transcripts for a sec. There's this part where Tate talks about how traditional politicians are totally ignoring the real issues.
Okay.
He says things like Keir Starmer and the other MPs refuse to show up in the House of Commons or discuss anything that matters at all.
Yeah, it's that classic populist move, right?
Totally.
Painting the establishment as out of touch and unconcerned with everyday people's struggles.
Exactly. He's playing on the frustrations of people who feel like they're not being heard.
Right, like their voices aren't being represented.
Yeah, by the current political system.
It's a tactic we see populist figures using all over the world.
All the time.
Yeah. He also talks about what he calls the perma-failure.
Perma-failure.
Of the political class.
Okay.
Arguing that their consistent inability to deliver on promises will actually help him.
Interesting. So it's like a reverse psychology kind of thing.
Yeah.
He's saying the worse things get, the more likely people are to turn to him.
To an outsider.
All right, someone who's promising that radical change.
Yeah, it's a gamble, for sure.
It is.
But if people keep getting more and more dissatisfied with the way things are, it could totally pay off.
It could.
He even pledges that he'll step down himself.
What?
Yeah, if he fails to deliver on his manifesto.
Really?
Within 3 months of taking office.
That's a bold promise.
Yeah, talk about putting your money where your mouth is.
It really feels into this image he's built.
Right.
As a man of action.
Yeah, someone who's not afraid to be held accountable.
Right. It's the opposite of what people think of when they think of career politicians.
Yeah, that complacency and lack of urgency.
Exactly.
And then there's this quote that really stood out to me.
What is it?
If I take power, and shadow interests, hidden figures prevent me from implementing my manifesto. I will tell all of you why they are stopping me and who they are.
Ooh, that's giving me some serious conspiracy theory vibes.
Right.
It definitely plays into that whole narrative of like a deep state or a shadowy elite.
Yeah, controlling everything behind the scenes.
Yeah, and by presenting himself as the one who's willing to expose these forces, he's making himself out to be the champion of the people, the one who's going to fight for their interests against this corrupt establishment.
It's a good story.
It is.
Especially for people who are already suspicious of those in power.
Right.
But the question is, will enough people buy into this story to actually make him prime minister?
Right. Could Andrew Tate actually become prime minister of the UK?
I mean, it's still early.
Very early.
There are a lot of factors at play.
Yeah, he's definitely facing an uphill battle with his legal troubles and the way the political system is set up.
Yeah, it's not going to be easy.
But even if he doesn't win, what does his candidacy tell us?
Yeah, what does it say?
About UK politics right now.
It seems like there's a growing disconnect between voters and the establishment.
Definitely. People are clearly looking for change.
Yeah, they want something different.
And they're willing to look outside the usual political circles to find it.
And we can't ignore social media.
Oh, yeah, huge factor.
Tate has built this massive following online, and he's clearly using it to his advantage.
Absolutely. Social media has completely changed how politics works.
Yeah, it lets people like Tate bypass the traditional media.
Right, they don't need to rely on newspapers and TV anymore.
And connect directly with voters.
And in a way that feels more personal and engaging.
Yeah, you feel like you're getting it straight from the source.
Exactly.
He's constantly engaging with his supporters online.
Yeah.
Shaping the narrative, running a permanent campaign.
It's a powerful tool, and he's using it really effectively.
He's able to control the message completely, present himself directly to his audience.
Without any filters.
Yeah, no interpretations from the media.
Right, it's just him and his followers.
But there's a downside to this kind of direct, unfiltered communication too, right?
Oh, for sure. There's a big risk of misinformation.
Right, the things that aren't true spreading easily.
Yeah, and extreme views getting amplified.
And people losing trust in institutions.
Absolutely. And with someone like Tate, who's known for his controversial rhetoric, those risks are even bigger.
It's almost like we're in this uncharted territory now.
It feels that way.
Where the old rules of politics just don't apply anymore.
We're in a new era of political communication.
Yeah.
And we're still trying to figure out what it means for democracy.
Okay, so we've talked about Tate's policies, his rhetoric, his legal situation, his use of social media.
Yeah.
But what about the man himself?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah, who is Andrew Tate beyond the persona and the headlines?
To understand his political ambitions, we need to understand him.
Right.
And it's a complicated picture.
From what I've read in these articles, he's got a pretty interesting backstory.
Like what?
Kickboxing champion, reality TV star.
Okay.
And then internet fame with his, let's just say, unique take on masculinity and success.
He's a master of self-promotion and branding.
Yeah, he's created this image of the alpha male, the ultimate success story.
And it's clearly resonated with a lot of people.
But there's a darker side to his narrative too, right?
There is.
The accusations of misogyny, the promotion of toxic masculinity, and then, of course, the serious legal charges.
Those are definitely things we can't ignore.
Yeah, they paint a troubling picture.
They do.
And raise questions about his character and his judgment.
For sure.
It's important to acknowledge that there are very different views on Andrew Tate.
Absolutely.
Some people see him as a charismatic leader speaking truth to power.
Right.
Others see him as dangerous, misogynistic, a threat to society's values.
It's a divisive issue.
Yeah, no doubt.
And it'll be interesting to see how these different views play out as his campaign goes on.
So what does all of this mean for the UK?
Yeah.
Is Andrew Tate a real threat to the political establishment? Or is this all just a publicity stunt?
A flash in the pan that's going to disappear. Only time will tell.
Right.
But one thing's for sure. His entry into politics has made things very unpredictable.
Yeah. UK politics is going to be interesting to watch.
Definitely. And speaking of staying informed.
Yeah. We want to remind you to subscribe to our channel and follow us for all the latest updates.
Yeah, and if you're really enjoying these deep dives and want to support what we do, you can join our Patreon community. I'll get exclusive content, behind-the-scenes stuff, and you can even chat with us directly.
Yeah, the link is down in the episode description.
So check it out.
Your support helps us keep making these deep dives, and we really appreciate it.
We do.
Okay. But enough about us. Let's get back to Andrew Tate and his crazy run for prime minister.
Okay.
So before we wrap up this episode, we'd love to hear what you think about all this.
Yeah, head down to the comments section and let us know.
Yeah, what do you think?
Do you think Tate actually has a chance at becoming prime minister?
What does his candidacy say about British politics right now?
What role is social media playing in all this?
Yeah, we're really interested to hear your thoughts.
Especially on these super complex and controversial issues.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of Andrew Tate and his political ambitions, we're left with one final thought-provoking question.
Hit us with it.
What does his entry into politics, regardless of the outcome, tell us about how political discourse is changing?
Okay.
And why unconventional figures are so appealing these days?
It's a big question.
We're seeing a global shift
Yeah.
in how people engage with politics.
Definitely.
There's this growing distrust of traditional institutions, this hunger for authenticity.
Yeah.
And people are more willing to embrace those who challenge the status quo.
Right. They want someone who's going to shake things up.
And in this new landscape, figures like Andrew Tate, who are great at self-promotion, who aren't afraid of controversy, and who offer simple solutions to complex problems, they can find a receptive audience.
They definitely can.
It's a trend that raises important questions about the future of democracy.
Can traditional political systems adapt to this new reality?
Right.
And what are the risks and rewards of embracing these unconventional political figures?
It's a conversation we need to keep having.
For sure.
And it's one we'll continue to explore right here on The Deep Dive.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on this journey into the heart of British politics.
It's been a wild ride.
Until next time, keep those brains buzzing and those critical thinking caps on.
Stay curious out there.